Oh, here we are again. Another warble. What a vista you got behind you there. Where's that? Is that somewhere in Spain?
No, oh, you might think so. No, this is on the Dorset coast. It's Chesil Beach. It's beautiful this time of year. Well, it was last week, but it wasn't this weekend because it was raining. But you know, hey,
look, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Good laugh.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got the wonderful vista of Dartmoor National Park behind us, all the way across to Chesil Beach. Don't get any better than that. Don't need to go abroad.
No, stay down here in Southwest, my lovers.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing this week? Who are you talking to then?
So I've been having a good chat with my good friend Paul Kinvig from the Bournemouth Town Centre BID Business Improvement District.
I bet he's been busy with all those people sat on that beach, isn't he?
He wasn't happy at the time, I can tell you. No, he wasn't happy at all. He was drinking all the cider and everything. Oh. Yeah, it was. We touched on it a little bit in terms of the interview, but yeah, there were some interesting scenes. I mean, the key thing he's talking about lockdown easing, how he's been collaborating with different agencies in the area. So let's ping over and listen to Mr. Kinvig and see what he's got to say, shall we?
Great, lovely.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd just like to say a warm welcome to Paul Kinvig from Bournemouth Town Centre BID. We're going to have a chat for 10 or 15 minutes today and hear what's going on in the BID world. And what I'd like to do first of all, Paul, is just say hello. And if you'd like to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers, just let us know what you do at Bournemouth Town Centre BID.
Of course. Good to see you, Richard. As Richard said, my name's Paul Kinvig. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Bournemouth Town Centre BID. Bournemouth is not unique, but rare in the fact that in a town of its size, it has two BIDs. For those of you who don't know kind of what BIDs are, they started off in Canada, came down into America, then over into the UK into the mid-90s. And what basically it was, I think they started off as a recognition that town and city centres were going to go through some fairly fundamental changes going forward. And boy, that was right. And so effectively, a BID, which stands for Business Improvement District, is where a geographical area is set and the businesses within that area form a shadow board, come up with a business plan that is designed to drive growth. That could be in footfall, it could be in events, everything from safety and security, cleaning, etc. But the good thing about BIDs is that they are run by businesses for the town. So even though we've got two representatives on our board of 16 that are local authority, the rest are all businesses that operate in the town centre. And so whilst it's a not-for-profit organisation, it is very much focused on those areas that can help improve towns and cities for the benefit of those who live, work and visit in a town. And that's kind of what BIDs are about.
It sounds fantastic. The amount of influence and ability to work with different agencies as well. Sounds like that's something that's part of your organisation, how you work, and that enables the businesses, which is a really great thing to hear, to influence how great an experience your customers and visitors have when coming to the particular area. So it'd be great just to hear a little bit about over the last number of weeks, and particularly towards when the last lifting of the lockdown, so the non-essential sort of retail and shops have started to open. How have you been collaborating, and who have you been collaborating with to ensure you're delivering a great customer experience?
I think you touch on something I think, Rich, is really important there. I mean, looking at it from a customer point of view, all the people that we collaborate with, their customers are our customers. So whether you are a local authority, who we do a lot, I kind of classify our relationship with the local authority as a critical friend. So it's part. I've tried to instill within the BID and within what we do a real sense of collaboration, in the sense of working together, because we have a shared customer base, whether they are visitors, whether they are workers, whether they are businesses, whether they are residents. You know, if you like, the customer base of the local authority, for example, is our customer base. So we have a vested interest in collaborating where it's appropriate and where we can deliver more, because we all three of those benefit the local authority, us, and the customers. So we have done a lot of collaboration with the local authority, and I have to say I think I'm kind of lucky, I suppose. But within the local authority in Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole now, there is a lot of that approach there as well. So since both before lockdown and since release of current lockdown, we're part of something called the R3 team, which is the local authority, chambers, us, which we all come together to look at what we do with the economy. So that's collaboration at its highest extent, because it is everything from street signage, queuing stickers, through to high-level strategic discussions as to could the economy look like in Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole going forward, and what do we want it to look like? And that's the thing. So, number one, work really closely with the local authority, and it's not all roses. But the great thing is, I think there's a lot of respect between the two organisations, which is the basis for a collaboration anyway. We've collaborated an awful lot with external agencies to provide value to our levy payers, whether that's been HR support, information, whether that's been helping them to access the government grants and loans, helping them to understand the ever-changing guidance that almost seems to come on a daily basis, as you can imagine, because of the complexity of the situation. And we've encouraged businesses to collaborate with each other. I think one of the interesting things that's happened over the past few weeks has been, it's been the re-emergence of a phrase that I first picked up would be in the mid-90s, which was compete in the morning and collaborate in the afternoon. And there are situations whereby you will compete. Competition is very much sometimes at the heart of what businesses do. But there are situations that both are either enforced upon you or opportunities that arise whereby collaborating with what would appear to be a competitor makes sense, because the combined strength actually gets you over the hurdle or wins you the order or the opportunity. So I think, if anything, it's reinforced for me personally, both with the bid, but also in the way that we operate, that the sense of collaborating with others and people you would never think of collaborating with kind of looks like the way forward. So, for example, what would seem relatively mundane, but last night there were 170 floor vinyl queuing stickers applied throughout Bournemouth Town Centre, outside nationals and independents, across all the kind of sectors, just to help with social distancing. Now you go, well, why mention that? Well, for the simple reason that it was a local company that was able to supply them. We worked with the tourism team, and we spent 2 half days, me and 2 of the guys from the tourism team, going around each individual store, mapping out where they would go, because local authority have a responsibility to try and ensure that flows in the public space arena conform to social distancing. Now you could go, well, isn't that the norm? Well, in many cases, I sometimes think that it isn't, and that a lot of people don't do that. So it's just that kind of very practical collaboration that all of us, irrespective of what sector we operate in, public, private, or not for profit, I think going forward, are going to have to come to terms with.
I think it's a great example of coming together, and that sort of competition isn't necessarily the way to go at the minute. I think collaboration, we can see it's going to get us through this, and we're going to come out stronger. We can come out stronger the other side if we work together. And the key thing there is that the person or the people that benefit from that work you're doing collaborating is the customer.
That's the point of it. That's exactly right.
Exactly. The key thing there. Absolutely. So over the last week, I think, where are we now? We've since the non-essentials have opened, it's been about 10 days, 12 days. How has that been seen by you? What are the successes? What's gone well? What hasn't? What perhaps is something you need to be thinking a little bit more about?
Okay. As you would expect, every day is different, because nobody really knew. You've got examples from other parts of Europe where there was a lot of pent-up demand, but a lot of that demand was what was being called purchasing with a purpose. So yes, there were people who were coming just for the experience of being able to come shopping, but an awful lot of the purchasing we saw in the first week were people with a very definite idea as to what they wanted. And it kind of wasn't small like ticket items either. This was right across the sector in terms of home interiors, etc. And interestingly, in Bournemouth, there have been some stories of people going, it's not been great, but there's been stories of people that have been having sales and figures that are better than Christmas under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
And that's both national and independent. So I can't believe I would be this almost middle of the road, but we're still looking at it. We're still analysing it.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, is there a sector? Is there a focus on big nationals because people are afraid of smaller independents in terms of social distancing and potential infection? And yet, having said that, a significant number of our independents in Bournemouth, especially in the fashion retail, I think, are reporting really, really good figures. I think the one thing that we've learned and we've characterised is that retailers and shops have taken all of this very, very, very seriously. The amount of input they've put into social distancing and keeping customers safe has been significant. Matched with, and I would say this, wouldn't I, their kind of ingenuity in terms of accessing markets and new markets and new customers and new ways of getting their products to the customers, both existing and new.
Yeah, I think it's something we've seen across a lot of different sectors is the fact that, we use that pivot word, but people have had to be a little bit more, inventive and think about it in slightly different ways, which again has benefited the customer. And the key thing there is that there are new processes and new ways of doing things, and those change. So the communication piece that's going through to your visitors, your customers, is obviously pretty critical in terms of that. So the next key step, and this recording is probably coming out on the day when things open up even more on the 4th of July. What's that looking like for you? Are there things you're focusing on?
It's the big one because the hospitality sector is so important in the BCP conurbation, and especially in Bournemouth Town Centre. So again, hospitality businesses have really taken to heart what they can do. I think many of them are still going, I've done everything, but is this going to work? And I think there are some tough decisions for hospitality businesses to make regarding social distancing and what their capacity is in order to say, can I get enough numbers in to actually make this work? Back on your collaboration point, one of the things that us, tourism and the nighttime economy people are working on is how we can increase capacity for Bournemouth hospitality sector by looking at temporary pavement licenses, looking at external areas, and some interesting stuff coming out called streeteries from various cities around the world, where they're turning public places into kind of eateries. So we are currently literally now going with the hospitality going, what plans have you got? What would you like to do? What pavement area have you got? And the three of us are pulling all this together with a view to a local authority or central to this, going, right, what can we do for temporary pavement licenses? What can we do to open up public areas? How will they be monitored and policed, etc.? But to look at that, because if we can help the hospitality sector increase its capacity within the social distancing guidelines, it's going to give more of them a fighting chance of getting through this until such time as whatever the normal we go back to is, if we ever do, and I say I doubt that. So that's the big one. We've put a whole bunch of hand sanitizer units into some of our levy payers to help them with that. So it's a mixture of the practical help like that, but also the more strategic bit is, again, how can you do what you do differently within the public realm that we can help work in collaboration with the local authority?
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like there's a massive opportunity for everybody there, and hopefully with your assistance and the BID, everybody's going to be making the most of this lifting in the lockdown piece. So time has beaten us, I'm afraid, Paul. But thanks ever so much for your time and giving us an insight into what you've been doing. Much appreciated. And I hope all goes well towards the 4th of July and beyond, and the great weather lasts, so we can make the most of the opportunity. Paul Kinvig, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Rich. Thank you very much, Niamh, for the opportunity to chat.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. That was Paul talking. He some interesting information there on how they collaborate and work together. What were your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, really one of the most interesting ones I thought we've had yet, because what was really interesting listening to him was, you know, he's not representing just one business, or he's not just one or two clients. He's representing hundreds of businesses. You know, he's a key stakeholder, isn't he, in the economic resurgence of Bournemouth. And you know, I love going to Bournemouth anyway. I think it's a great town. But you know, that being in that role, and I see it. We work with a couple of bids down in Plymouth, and I see it there. You know, they take the world on the sort of the weight of the world on their shoulders to try and make things right for their levy players. And I thought his passion for wanting to get the experience right in the town, and therefore for his, you know, improving the footfall and getting people back, I thought was a brilliant point he made in terms of, you know, I think he said, you know, his levy payers' customers are their customers, and I thought it was a really powerful point. And he talked, didn't he, about this being, you know, a critical friend, and you know, maybe pointing out to some of the levy payers that maybe some of the experience sometimes isn't great. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but when I go to a destination I'm not that familiar with, or I don't go there very often, you tend to have a bit of a preconceived idea about a town or a city, don't you? And sometimes that's not always right. You know, sometimes some of these great seaside towns and cities we've got are reinventing themselves. They've had loads of investment, and that's been driven by the bid, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting concept, the whole bid piece, I think. You know, and the fact that they've got to collaborate so well with the different organisations that are involved. You've got your councils, you've got your city councils, your county councils, whatever it is, and they've all got to sit around in the chambers of commerce and everybody who comes together to make the decisions. There's a common goal there, isn't there? And I think it's a lot of it's around, can be reflected in terms of the sectors that a lot, you know, our listeners work in. You know, you've got competitors that you consider out there, but actually they're not. You know, the pie is big enough for everybody to be having a good old section of it and making the most of it. And the key thing there, and Paul kept talking about, is the customer. It's about people having an experience. You're not just going into a city centre now. I think we said this back at the start of this whole situation. You know, the centres are really important now. You know, if people are living there, they want to make the most of it, because there's a chance that other people are, you know, if they're further out, they're not going to go into the middle of the town. So they've really got to work hard at the minute, and it's really interesting to hear what they've got to put up with in terms of those different views. But everybody's got a positive intent, haven't they? It's all about wanting to make a difference, because when you've got that at the forefront of your mind, the other stuff tends to follow. You know, don't worry about the score. Do the basics right, and then the score will follow. As one bloke from an England rugby team once said. So yeah.
Don't you think though as well? What I found interesting about listening to Paul was, you know, the events that kind of happen upon them. And you know, I made a glib joke earlier in the warble about, you know, all these people descending on Bournemouth, and you know, all joking aside, that must have been pretty horrendous actually for the authorities, like, you know, of which he would have been one, a key stakeholder, trying to solve that issue with so many people not social distancing, and you know, everyone will have their own views on the rights and wrongs of that. But you know, how do you plan? How do you get all your stakeholders on board? You know, his role is massive in that sense of trying to get the experience right. Because if you'd rocked up to Bournemouth on, you know, that day a few weeks ago with all those people on the beach, you wouldn't have had a great experience, would you? You wouldn't have felt safe. You wouldn't, and that would be the memory of the experience that would have been left about Bournemouth. And you know, that's not good. So yeah, a really interesting interview, and you know, my takeaways were, you know, absolutely all about your customers being their customers, the collaboration point, and making sure that you're keeping all of your stakeholders informed and collaborating with them for the greater good. And then the third point that I thought came over really well was about, you know, holding the mirror up, being that critical friend sometimes about when things aren't right, and how you solve that. So yeah, collaboration, being a critical friend, and your customers are our customers.
And I think that critical friend piece is really important. You know, from our point of view, that's the position, the stance we take as well.
Yeah.
You know, we can provide the insight for lovely businesses out there listening to us now. We can give you all of the positives that you do, and that's great, because you need to hear how great you are. And there's a lot of great business out there, but also you need to hear when things aren't quite landing. You know, if you're not getting some complaints, you're doing something wrong. That's always an odd thing to say, but it's true, isn't it? You know, you need to be able to look at the things that aren't working so well and actually have the ability to say, yeah, go on, let me know, because I know it will make me better. And I think that's a key thing. So I think Paul gave us a really good view there. And again, thank him for sparing us some time and giving a bit of insight around the business improvement district down there in Town Centre Bournemouth. Next week.
Next week, Rich. Well, I'm speaking to John Harvey, and many of the viewers and listeners will know John. He's the founding member of the Samphire Club, which is a big networking club across Bristol down
the Lord Samphire.
Lord Samphire, that's the boy. Yeah. So he's going to talk to us about the importance of networking, and again builds on some of the stuff Paul talked about you know the collaboration point. So that'll be a really good watch and listen. So yeah. So anyway, enough of that. We've wet their whistles, babe. Let's get them all on next week. If you like what you've heard and seen today, please like, share, and comment on our YouTube channel and Spotify and Apple Music, Apple Podcasts rather. That's really important. We're trying to get this message out. We're trying to raise the customer experience piece. So please like, share, and comment. I've been Ryan Huxtable.
I've been Richard Knight. See you, me batters.